Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering a divorce, it's important to know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. On today's edition of the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we're talking with Mary Jones, a collaborative attorney in Austin, Texas. Mary, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Glad to be here.
Let's start first of all with this question about collaborative divorce. What is collaborative divorce?
In the most simplest form, I would say it is a very respectful process for going through your divorce, in which you eliminate any threat of going to court. It's one where you are committed to an open and honest dialogue, one that's going to look out for the best interest of both parties, not just one. It's one that looks at a divorce as a problem to be solved or resolved, as opposed to a fight that somebody needs to win. And it's a statutory process in Texas, has been since the early 2000s. I think Texas was one of the first states to actually put it into its statutes. And it's guided by not just the statutory requirements, but we have a wonderful statewide organization, Collaborative Divorce Texas, that is highly supportive of not just the process, but the professionals that are involved in this process that give us the training. We've had some incredible training people that have facilitated these training sessions for attorneys, for financial professionals, for mental health professionals. And it's done in a team effort, as opposed to one client talking to their attorney who calls the other attorney who then talks to their client. It's a method by which all parties and their attorneys can ethically have roundtable discussions and negotiations about what the issues are and what each person's interests are. So collaborative is an interest-based negotiation process.
So one of the things that somebody should look for if they're in a collaborative, wanting to go down the collaborative road, is that the attorney is collaboratively trained. What does that mean, to be collaboratively a trained attorney?
The collaborative process is very much like business meetings. And it's not just training for how do you go through the process. It's in-depth training for how do you approach resolving this divorce case differently than the litigation model. Totally differently. Because ethically, once you sign a contract, then in a roundtable discussion, or actually they're very business-like meetings, you learn how to create an agenda. There is a roadmap for this process that was developed years ago that's explained to the clients when they come into the process. There's not only an agenda at the end of each meeting, joint session, somebody takes minutes for the meeting, and those minutes are prepared and sent out. So very much like if you were a part of an LLC or a corporation where you're having these business meetings and you have agendas, so everybody is scheduled for that. But it's also training for a different mindset of how you're going to take these people from the beginning to the end, and how you're going to work with them and work together through this interest-based negotiation process. First, in developing their interests, and you learn how to do that in training, but you also learn a lot about insight theory, how to listen to the parties when they're expressing either a concern or a frustration to be more curious and ask the questions to get down to what is driving that question. What's driving this issue? What's really behind the concern? And learning to develop those skills. And it's a continuous process. I've been practicing for 30 years. I was trained back in the early 2000s, and it's training that you need to keep up with on an annual basis. Just as you would go to an annual seminar like the Advanced Family Law Seminar every year to find out what the new law is, you're not necessarily going to find out what the new law is. You're going more to learn from other professionals processes that they're finding are extremely helpful to parties and to the attorneys and the team members who are working with the parties to bring them to resolution.
So you mentioned these team members. What are the roles of these other team members who are neutral in the case? What is their role in the divorce process in a collaborative case?
Many times, if parties have finances that might be a little bit more complex than your standard, you have a house, 2 cars, 2 retirement accounts, a savings account, maybe you have an investment account, and it's very simple to determine what the assets are, or you're going from one economic household to 2, you're going to bring in a financial neutral who's going to work with the parties to help them gather the information, put it all together in a spreadsheet as you normally would in a divorce. But they're not there to represent either party. They're there for both of them. So both parties have equal access to this person, and they work with this person a lot offline. So you get the fee shifting benefit there, where you're paying one financial neutral, where that's their area of expertise, to come in and work with you on that part of the puzzle of your divorce process.
And they are not other attorneys. These are people whose business is about money, CPAs.
They're certified financial planners. Some of them are CPAs. Some of them also do business valuations and have been in the business of finances for a long time. Many of them have been working with family law attorneys for a long time and doing a number of litigation cases. They too go through training for the collaborative process so that all the professionals involved understand the process, how it works, and how they are to work it with the couple. Another team member might possibly be a neutral mental health professional, which when you first mention that to people, their initial reaction is, we don't need a therapist. And then I explain to them, this person isn't here to be your therapist. This person is really more a communications facilitator. So if during your marriage there's been a breakdown in communication, if you have a difficult time actually being able to hold a respectful diplomatic conversation with your spouse at this point, or that's been one of the difficulties in your marriage that you really have not been able to overcome, or there's just a big difference in how each parent wants to parent the children, and there's disputes over that. This is a professional in behavior, human behavior, who work with the parents offline to discuss the parenting plan and how they're going to work through those decisions. But they're also there in those business meetings to conduct the meeting and be the communications facilitator so that those meetings do not go off track. They don't go off the rails. They keep everybody focused and moving through the agenda, because you want to make sure that you're extremely efficient with the time during those business meetings. And so that person is extremely helpful in both of those areas. Every now and then, you'll have a really difficult child issue that the parties just can't come to an agreement on. They just don't see eye to eye. There is no meeting of the minds whatsoever. And maybe they're both taking some pretty hard stances on something. In that case, the possibility is bringing in a child specialist who comes into the case to interview the children in a forensic way. And their role is very limited. They're not there for the business meetings. They're not there to talk to parties offline. They are there for a very limited purpose, and that is getting down to exactly what's going on with the child or the children and and being able to come back and report to the team as a whole in a business meeting what they have found. And many times that's what's needed to get parents over the hump and be able to reach an agreement on an issue that they have just been at odds with each other on.
So the sort of the history of collaborative is a Minnesota lawyer 30 years ago by the name of Stu Webb, who said there's got to be a better way for people to divorce. What was your moment when you said there's got to be a better way? Aha, collaborative.
Probably when collaborative first came out in Texas and it was introduced and we were going to be getting this new statute. And most of the lawyers of my generation who were doing a lot of litigation at that time said, finally, now we have a way to work with people to bring down the contentious nature of divorces, to lower the adversarial mindset that people come into a divorce with, and to figure out it's a method that brings attorneys at a place where they can ethically talk to one another and work together for the benefit of both parties and that family, as opposed to having very strict ethical responsibilities to your client. You can now jointly work together as to what's in the best interest of both these people, what's in the best interest of their children, as opposed to leaving that up to a judge. Plus, it's a way to eliminate the post-divorce breakdown in that relationship. If you're going to go into a litigation mode, by the end of your divorce case, there will not be a relationship between the two parents. If there is, it will be so adversarial, and it does more damage to them as individuals, but also to their family, especially if they have children, whether those children are young or they're grown. And it gives a way for these people to build on their communication skills, to become much more mindful and knowledgeable about how they're talking, how they're being perceived, listening to the other spouse, so that those communication skills actually go forward with them into co-parenting post-divorce, or just being able to maintain somewhat of a civil relationship with one another post-divorce. And that's a healthy way for each person to get through a divorce.
So we're doing this podcast in advance of Divorce with Respect Week, which is coming up March 4th through 8th. And at that time, people can schedule a consultation, a 30-minute consultation to kind of learn more about their divorce options. Is there anything that someone should do to prepare for that kind of a consultation with you?
I would say be thinking of what your goals are for a divorce process. Be thinking of what have been roadblocks in your marital relationship to start with. And be thinking in a more creative way. Be prepared to think in a creative way of resolutions to dissolving your marriage, as opposed to walking into it and coming from a place of fear. Because this provides a very safe environment, and it provides an environment that I have seen is much more protective of people's feelings and concerns, but also protective of their integrity and coming out of the divorce process with that intact.
Mary, thanks for joining us on the Respectful Divorce Podcast today.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you having me.
If someone wants to schedule one of those consultations with you, they should go to divorcewithrespectweek.com, navigate to the Texas section where they'll find a link to be able to reach out to you to schedule that. If someone wants to learn more about you, what is your website?
MaryJonesFamilyLaw.com.
And we will put a link to the website in the show notes. This reminder, Divorce with Respect Week is March 4th through 8th. You do go to divorcewithrespectweek.com for more information. This is Tim Kraus reminding you that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.